Instant ramen is just one of those things that everybody's had. And while we all may have different opinions on it, I think we can all agree on one thing. It can be better. So for your viewing pleasure and the pleasure of my wife's stomach, we're gonna make 3 different bowls. The first, your 10-minute typical spruced up instant ramen. The second, an hour long of our time dedicated to taking something from okay to that's pretty good. And finally, the third, a day-long labor of love that probably won't be worth it, but will probably be delicious. And to keep it fair, each bowl will have to use the noodles and the soup base. Now for this first bowl, we're pretty limited by time, so we really only have about as much time as it takes to boil the water. But I'm just gonna let this burn on the back burner so we can use this one to make some Spam. Now I know a lot of you have thoughts on Spam. Some are right, some are wrong. But at the end of the day, if you don't like it, just keep trying until you do. Now we're just gonna go ahead and sear that in the skillet. And then remove it. And now that our water is up to temp, we'll drop in our noodles. I'm also gonna add in a whole egg and let it cook a little with the noodles. That way when we crack it later, it doesn't all fall apart. Now we'll just slice up some green onions. And once our noodles are nice and al dente, we're just gonna move them over to the bowl. And now we're just gonna remove that egg, add in our packet seasoning, a little chicken bouillon powder, and some soy sauce. Now we'll just crack in that egg. And would you look at that? I was totally wrong and it stuck to the inside of the shell. Cool. And now that that yolk is mostly set, we're just gonna add in our broth to our noodles. Add in our Spam, some of those green onions, a little bit of chili oil, and some shredded nori. Now it may look sad, but don't worry, there's always something sadder. I've had better, but I've also made worse, so, you know, it's something. Now for our next bowl, because we have an hour, I'm gonna go ahead and make some soft boiled eggs. I took these out about 10 minutes ago. Now I'm just gonna tap on the bottom until I hear a nice little click. Like that. It'll just make it easier to peel later. Now after about 6.5 minutes, go ahead and move those to an ice bath. And in the same water, blanch some washed bok choy. It should only take about a minute, then move those to the ice as well. Now we're just gonna salt and white pepper both sides of a skin-on chicken thigh, and then lay it in skin side down in a cold pan. Now you're gonna wanna slowly bring the heat up to render out the fat in the chicken skin. Once your skin is nice and crispy, go ahead and reduce your heat and finish cooking through. And once the thickest part of your thigh reaches a temp of like 160, remove it and let it rest. Now go ahead and fill your pot back up with water, and try not to spill any, and bring it to a boil. While you wait, go ahead and prep the rest of your toppings. I'm gonna have the bok choy, and carefully peel the eggs. Beautiful. Now I'm just gonna slice some green onions, opening them up, layering them on top of one another, and then carefully slicing them long ways. Then I'm just gonna place them in the ice water until they're nice and curly. And now that our water's boiling, noodles in. I'm also gonna slice up some Kamaboko, which if you don't know is just fish cake made with a blend of white fish. And we're gonna slice up our chicken. And once those noodles are cooked, move them over to your bowl. Now into your pot, you're gonna start off with some Hondashi, which is basically just an instant fish stock. And then a little bit of miso paste, make sure it gets fully dissolved. And then we can't forget our soup packet, a little bit of soy sauce, and a tablespoon of butter just to help with the richness. And now we're just gonna go ahead and add in that broth to our noodles. Add in our chicken, our Kamaboko, a couple of our bok choys, and the best part, a nice soft-boiled egg. Ooh, and we can't forget the green onions. Now was it perfect? Definitely not. For the extra time, it's good. I don't know if I'd spend an hour on it again. It's not looking good for spending a day on instant ramen, but I'm still gonna do it anyways. And now, for what you've all been waiting for, and for what I've been dreading, day-long instant ramen. We're gonna start by making some ramen eggs, also known as ajitama. And we're starting with these because they take the longest. They have to sit there and marinate. And we'll cook these the same as before, so 6.5 minutes boiling. And then straight into an ice bath. And while those cool down, a large container, soy sauce, mirin, sesame oil, and sugar. Now just cap it and give it a good shake. And once your eggs are cool to the touch, go ahead and carefully peel and place them in your marinade. Now just top it off with water and use half a paper towel to make sure that the tops get colored too. Now just throw them in your fridge. I find the best results after about 2 days, but she'll be good after about 6 to 8 hours. And now for our chashu. I have 2 pounds of pork belly here that I'm just gonna roll up nice and tight, using some butcher's twine to hold it all together. And I really wanna make sure it is as uniform and tight as I can get it. And I'll be honest, I really don't know how to tie this thing off at the end, so I'm just gonna tuck it and twist it a few times until it feels solid. Just like that, like a nice little pork belly baby. Except you don't tie up babies, so maybe it's something else. Now go ahead and move that into a large pot, cover it up in water, and then bring it to a boil. Once it starts to boil, go ahead and remove as much of that scum as you can. Then just remove your pork belly and siphon off some of that pork water. Now just dump the rest of the water, bring your heat back up, go in with a little food lube, and then just sear off your pork belly. Make sure to get all sides. After that, go ahead and add in soy sauce, mirin, Japanese cooking sake, white sugar, ginger, some green onion stalks, and then fully cover it with the rest of that pork water. And you're probably wondering, man, what are the measurements for this? Well, they're all down below, or on the side, or wherever it is, you know, the description. Go ahead and give it a little mix, and then bring the whole thing up to a simmer. Once it starts to simmer, go ahead and offset a lid, and now let it braise for 4 hours, flipping every 30 minutes. After about 4 hours, it should look and smell delicious. Now just cover it back up and kill your heat. Let it sit in that liquid for about 30-40 minutes while it cools down. And now that it's cooled down a bit, we're gonna carefully move it into another container and then cover it with that liquid. And make sure you get it all. Now just cap it and let it chill all the way down in your fridge. If you're in a pinch, you can throw it in your freezer, but do not let it freeze or your meat will be stuck in a frozen block of liquid. And now for our broth. 4 cups of water, a few wallet-sized pieces of kombu, and bring it up to a boil. Now for this, we're gonna be making a dashi broth. It's similar to the one we used before, but instead of being instant, this one we're not making instant because we're gonna make it from scratch. And as soon as it begins to boil, cut your heat, add in your Bonito Flakes, cover, and let steep for about 20 minutes. And once it's finished steeping, go ahead and remove the kombu and strain out the Bonito Flakes as well. Then just add it back to the pot and stir in these delicious packets of instant ramen flavor. I'm using 2 because I needed double the amount of water to make the dashi, so 2 packets is what I'm using. And then just keep it warm on your stove. And now we're finally in the home stretch. Bring a pot of water to a boil, and while we wait, we're gonna go ahead and make some of those curly girly green onions again. And take your time when you're cutting these because the thinner they are, the better they'll curl. And then just drop those in an ice bath. You're also gonna wanna cut up one of those eggs from this morning. By now they should be nice and jammy. Like this. And now that our water's boiling, we're gonna go ahead and boil some more bok choy. And then moving that over to an ice bath once it's finished. And the last thing before our noodles, some bean sprouts. And those only need about 30 seconds. Now before we get to our noodles, we've got to cut up our pork. Carefully remove it from your liquid, and then carefully remove the butcher's twine. Try not to pull too hard so you don't take away any of the meat. Then you're just gonna very carefully cut off a couple slices. And then you can put this back in the liquid to save for later. Now you can quickly sear these on a skillet, but if you have an excuse to torch something, it's kind of like your civil obligation. And look how nice they come out. And finally, we boil our noodles and assemble. Bowl, we're gonna go in with a couple tablespoons of that braising liquid. Then the broth we made. Give that a good mix. Check for salt. It's good. And once our noodles are done, we'll move those in as well. I drop some. Give those a nice fluff. And then we assemble with the rest of our toppings. And there you go. Day-long instant ramen. And now to taste it, to truly decide if it's worth spending an entire day making instant ramen. Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? This was an absurd waste of time to make instant ramen. That said, is it the best bowl I've had today? Absolutely. Would I have rather spent $15 to $20 to just go to a ramen shop? Yes. Yes, I would have, because not only did this cost more, but it took up more of my time. But either way, thank you for joining me on this journey of overwhelming disappointment. Like and subscribe and we'll do it again. And share this with a friend so we don't have to be alone in our disappointment.